We are super close to hitting the mid-season buys, and there is a ton of big trade decisions for you to make this week in SuperCoach. For some of us, we're out of boosts. For others, this is our last opportunity to decide whether it's this week or to delay it. Some of us are even well under 20 trades remaining. What are the moves that you could and should be making in SuperCoach? Here at the Coaches Panel, I got you covered with my top 10 trade targets for the week. Launching straight in at number 1, my top trade target for the week is Nic Martin. No, it is not recency bias, I promise. Yes, he was outstanding alongside the entirety of the Essendon Bombers defensive unit last week against Sydney, but there's a couple of reasons why I like Nic. Really lowly owned, really affordable at the moment, just a little bit north of that $500,000 price point. But there's a couple of things I really like about him. Number one, he's got an unbelievably good ceiling. Whether you want to put him at either end of the ground is almost irrelevant. Comparably, on his best day, he can match it with just about any other premium defender and premium forward rolling around for us. So I think that's really important. His basement, it's not too bad in SuperCoach. I know the last fortnight wasn't outstanding prior to this last game, but he's already come out and said, look, I was actually battling some soreness, had some muscle tightness, but I'm worked through that. That gives us a little bit more narrative. But what I love about what Nic is doing right now is he's really owning this new developed role. Over the first 6 weeks of the year, 5 weeks specifically, he was playing as a high half forward and as a wingman. It's how he picked up forward status for us. Whereas now he's exclusively wing, given the entire roaming license. So much so we see him even take kick-ins. Essendon have really improved over the last month, and there's a number of unique compound reasons for that. But one of them is their ball movement out of defensive 50 is so much stronger and cleaner. They're taking on the right kicks, and they're, as a result, actually taking their time with ball movement, giving lots of opportunities for players like Nic to get involved in not only uncontested possessions, but ultimately get involved in those scoring chains. When I look at the forward and defensive eligibility thrown into the mix, he lets you upgrade at either end of the ground. He gives you great versatility, and Essendon have this great fixture. So when you throw ceiling, you throw buy structure, you throw your upgrade cadence can really be molded to what you need and not just locked into a line. And the fact that we have flex, he's a type of player that can sit in 3 of these positions, make lots of different moves available to you. I just find it really hard to not advocate strongly for Nic Martin as my number 1 trade target. I think he is the best buy this week when you stack up all the valuables and reasonings for it as well. My number 2 trade target is Tom Green. He's been sitting in my trade targets for a couple of weeks now here in SuperCoach, and this is one of the real critical times. We'd been crying out for some ceiling from Tom Green, and we finally saw it last week against Geelong. He's hit that tipping point where his break even is well north of what his average is, and his average is a little under what I think we all know is his true north, which is a 115 plus performer at under 550,000. As a premium midfielder that's on that critical round 16 buy, he becomes a really important option for us. Alongside that, he's no longer the trade target that opposition coaches are looking at going, oh, yeah, well, he's so lowly owned. I want to get a piece of a Lachie Neale, who was a really cheap option. But what Green and a Neale comparatively, although comparable in price in a couple of areas, albeit a few thousand apart, is Neale's a tag target. Green's not. It's Callaghan that teams are going to. So good ceiling, good stable role, inside and outside, getting involved in score involvements, impacting the scoreboard himself, favourable buy, and now no longer the tag. All these things alongside his uniqueness make him a ripping option. To me, he's my number 2 trade target. Want to know who's my 3rd? Going up a little bit higher in the ownership at 22%, but my number 3 trade target is Jack Sinclair. An average of 111 over the year. His break-even's right in that spot as well, but a really favourable matchup this week. really doing a great job at still being one of the primary ball movers for this St Kilda team and hitting it with beautiful efficiency. It's really hard to get a premium defender under 550,000 that you've got supreme confidence can go 110 plus from now to the end of the year and can give you a handful of 150 games in these sort of final dozen matches of the year. Sinclair does all those things, as well as sitting as that critical round 13 premium with defender mid status to really open up a bunch of different variables as we hit the very edges of the 2025 mid-season buy. So to me, everything is lining up that this to be a really nice week, then the prime time spot to get your hands on Jack Sinclair. So for me, he's my number 3 trade target. So far, all upgrades or premium territory players. I don't love any of the value options this week. I'm not going to lie, but if I was downgrading to anyone or correcting a red dot with anyone, the best and my number 4 trade target this week is Saad El-Hawli. 155,000 is where you're going to be paying for him. A break even of 19 is not amazing. An average of 39 is worse, but multiple of those games have been impacted by the sub vest that he starts with. He finally gets free of that. And I thought he actually played quite well on the weekend, but there are some returning players for the Bombers coming back. A Dylan Shield came back last week. A Darcy Parish is not going to play this week by all reports, but looks like he could be back as early as the week after that. So I do not love this for a vest-free selection, but he's in that mix for me. He's right there. Of all the downgrades, I think he's the best option to go for. There's another one that, this sounds terrible, I'd almost probably choose more, but the beauty of that player is you could wait the week on it. So to me, if you're making any downgrade this week and trying to maximize the potential cash that could come, it is Saad El-Hawli. I don't love it. Like I said, I've almost prefer the guy I've got next and wait the week. But if for whatever reason you need the cash available to you this week, if he is free of the vest, I think he should get a few games of opportunity in the side. But it's a risky business move. I'm going to be honest with you. It's risky business, but politely, that is the phase of the year we find ourselves right now. The guy who's the number 5 trade target is actually, if I was honest with you, guy, I'd almost prefer to trade into. But the reason he's not any higher in my trade targets this week is he is attainable next week. I'm alluding to a Bo Allan. The reason he's attainable for us next week, he's played just the one game. He does not yet sit on the bubble in SuperCoach, meaning you probably couldn't get El-Hawli next week, especially if he gets another 60-plus performance, whereas a Bo Allan is. So that's where we're going to let the break-even and the bubble become a little bit more of a varying driving factor. But in terms of job security, I'm much happier with Bo than I am with Saad, but Saad has to be this week. Look, a 36 wasn't great on debut. Let's be honest about it. But politely, West Coast are in a position where they've got to develop these young kids they've invested high draft capital in, and they've got to see what they could be and give them every opportunity to succeed. I can see another 10 to 12 games for Bo, should he not be injured, should he not get suspended, of getting opportunity. He should be in this best 23 quite comfortably. He may get a couple of vests, but politely, almost all our rooks are in this spot now that we're trading into. I think he's the best job security rookie we've got, but you can wait the week. Hence why Saad El-Hawli's ahead of him. So that's my top 5 trade targets. It's Nic Martin, it's Tom Green, it's Jack Sinclair, it's Saad El-Hawli, and then it's into Bo Allan. You need to get a bit creative, whether that be in cash generation or options. All right, let's go. My number 6 trade target for you this week is a James Peatling. 452,000, a break even that's seeing him going to make you a ton of cash. Over the last 2 weeks, since Matt Crouch has gone out of this side injured, he's had a pretty substantial role change. 65+% centre bounce attendances over the last 2 weeks, and a scoring increase to go alongside it. The matchup this week could be really interesting to me because the Crows love a contest, and while the Magpies are a hard team to score against, Peatling's score set does alongside that mesh nicely with a high tackle and pressure game, does get involved in the scoring change. And if the Crows' outside game can get unlocked on the MCG, well, we should see, based on that role, a really strong performance. If you're looking for some value, like he's that 100k, 80k cheaper than the Rankins that you might be looking at, than the Horn Francis that you might be looking at. Whomever you're going through, you're like, maybe you want to jump off a Caleb Daniel, right? And you're like, I need to do this on a budget because I'm not getting the cash generation downgrade plays. I need to be able to get rooks off my field. I want to get topped out mid-price options, the Shorts, the Daniels, to be exact, off the team. Right, this could be the play for you. Next week, after this Collingwood matchup, they do have West Coast, which is really, really favourable. It is an interesting buy round to consider, but to me, if you're shopping, looking for value at a guy that I think in this role for at least the next month plus, with Matt Crouch out, should be a 95 to a 105 guy. You're getting some value, you're getting some uniqueness, and you're probably going to get another 50k worth of cash stretched out of him. Whether or not that's a good enough reason for you is up to your unique side and style of coaching, but to me, he sits in that pocket. If you are wanting to do an upgrade in your defensive line, again, based on your structures, this might be the right guy for you. My number 7 trade target is a James Sicily. He's under 480,000 at time of recording. Teams have not yet been announced, so as you're watching this, there probably are. Let's hope he's not one of the Hawks that have been opted in not to play this week. Otherwise, I'll look like an absolute ghost. But regardless, what we're looking for is a guy that we know on his day is a 110 plus defender. He's priced well below that. And it's narrative to why a player's sitting in the price point and the average that they are. And with Sicily, the primary reason is they've needed to throw him forward for a number of matches in quarters rather than whole matches, let's be honest, to provide a tall forward option because they've really lacked outside of a Mabior Chol, and with a Jack Gunston probably taking a bigger load than they would have preferred over the first 2 months, they've had to throw him forward. And at times that's really impacted his ability to be the playmaker general out of that backline, which we know is where those intercepts have really helped catapult his SuperCoach scoring. Well, Kal Shadir's back this week. And again, from a buy structure, it actually could work quite nicely for you. That break-even's really attainable at 52 and incredibly unique at under 500k. This has all the markings of a guy that if Hawthorn can get into form, and they've done well to win without being in form, and they can keep some health in their tall forward stocks, James looms as a great value buy. And so for me, I've got him as my number 7 trade target. In at number 8, we talk about value buys. He was there last week. It wasn't great, but there's still a great price range to get Jordan Dawson now. He's my number 8 trade target, still just over that 520,000 price point. Break even still really attainable, about 25, 30 points under what his seasonal average is. I just remember the last couple of games of Jordan Dawson versus Collingwood has been great matchups. Great ceiling has been on display. He has been one of the few Crows over the last few years that when he steps foot on the MCG, he owns the moment. And I can see him wanting to establish himself and his team's chances to beat a team they just haven't been able to get it done for a very long time. Therefore, I'm still pretty happy to get my hands on Jordan Dawson. Cheaper than where I think he's going to be by season's end. The Crows fixtures, not awesome, but from a tagging perspective, there's no big alarm bells that I can see rolling through there. While we never know what teams will throw at you, Miles Bergman, I'm looking at you, we can have some confidence that we know Jordan Dawson's going to find a way to score, whether it be up forward, through the mids, setting up the play down back. I still think he's a good option. I've got him as top 10 premium mid for us. It's hard to get him at 550,000 or under. He sits in that spot. And if you're still trying to find room for Bontempelli, Butters, Daycott, to me, he's still an option that could help you get into that intermediate space of a good top line option without locking out a spot to get one of those guys. I like him. I like the fact they've got West Coast next week. And I think he's still going to put up a pretty decent score at the MCG this week. He's my number 8 trade target. And then number 9 and 10 are on the speculative side. And politely, if I'm honest with you, I think on both you could afford to wait the week. However, different teams are in different positions. Maybe you're really averse to any of the downgrade sub 160 options, and I totally understand why it is. You're maybe trying to get some cash off some fattened money makers, and you're like, I just need something that's going to get me through from now through or up until a team's bye. Well, it's for that reason it is 100% a week early. But I do want to put as my number 9 trade target this week, Kai Lohmann. He should be under 250,000 next week, but he's got a break even of 81, a seasonal average in the 20s, so many games impacted by injury. But could I encourage you to do a couple of things for me? Number one, go back and look at his 2024 scoring. There were pockets last year once he got free of the vest. We're talking about a guy that could dish up 80s, 90s, even some triple-digit scores in SuperCoach. You're getting that at a guy that's in and around the $250,000 price point right now. He probably will be cheaper next week, but we've said that before about players like a Chad Warner, and that didn't eventuate. What I like about Kai is he gives you a guy that is fieldable through the totality of your buys. He gets you a rookie off the field, whether that be in your forward or your flex position. And it's someone you can run up to the buys and with some luck, make yourself 100 plus K and bank some pretty nice scores. There's a few decent matchups through there in Brisbane that he could be able to get a little bit of ceiling. The fact he's so being stop-starty, I can see Brisbane wanting to give him some continuity. So barring any more injuries, and all of them have been unfortunate and unlucky, he should get that opportunity. I'm very, very happy with this choice next week, but I'm comfortable with it this week if it's going to be the thing that lets you do the moves you want to do this week and the moves you want to do next week. Don't ever, with a trade that you do in 1 week, let that be the reason it locks you out of what you're projecting and forecasting for the following week. And so if you got to go now, which is an okay time to ensure you get what you want this week and next week, I'm okay with you going a week early and hoping, for your sake, if you do, that it could get you into a really sweet spot. And then the last guy in a very similar vein, because he's on the bubble after this week's performance, you can afford to move. But Matteas Philippou is my number 10 trade target. He was a clear favourite of Supercoaches prior to that preseason injury. I thought a 78 last week against Carlton was heavily goal and score impact pending. But the conversations that I'm hearing out of St Kilda, and specifically out of the mouth of their coach, is that they do want and need him in the midfield. And a matchup this week against West Coast gives us that opportunity to go, look, even if he's not, the sheer volume of ball inside forward 50 should hope that we could at least get an 80 out of him. And again, you're making money off of a player like a Caleb Daniel with this downgrade into a Matteas, and all of a sudden Philippou could still match it with that sort of 90s territory forwards. You might not think you need another forward, but again, with flex, with dual position availabilities through your midfield and defensive lines, I still think this is a pretty handy trade in. Again, optimum is next week to give you all the data points before his price moves, but much like Lohmann at 9. If you're like, no, I need the matchup now because it's going to get me the other upgrade I want, and I would like to have a chance to taste this West Coast matchup for St Kilda, then I'm absolutely okay with you going a little bit of a leap of faith and going a week early. But what are your Supercoach trades this week? Have I listed any of the 10 players you're wanting to trade into? If I have, why don't you like this video and comment below. What are the 2 or 3 trades you are making this week in Supercoach? If you're loving the content you got from the Coaches Panel this year and you haven't subscribed, it takes you 2 seconds to do it, but it makes a huge impact for us. And make sure the notifications are on so that as soon as a video drops, you find out about it on your device straight away. Hey, good luck this week coming into the moves you're making in Supercoach this week. I hope it's favorable for you, and we'll be back with you again real soon, talking not just trade targets, but strategy here at the Coaches Panel.